Have you ever noticed that the Gospels don't all read exactly the same way? Why do they have differences? Let's talk about that. Why don't the Gospels say the same thing? For example, what was written over the cross of Christ when he was crucified? In the Gospel of Matthew, the Bible says, "This is Jesus, King of the Jews." In Mark, it says, "the King of the Jews." Luke says, "This is the King of the Jews." And John says, "Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews." Which one is correct? Well, you're probably not surprised to learn my answer is all of these are correct. Now, to be fair, the inscription over the cross was written in 3 languages, Greek, Latin, and Hebrew. But other examples exist. There seems to be contradictions in different parts of the Gospels. I want to give you 3 tools to help us understand why that is the case. The first thing we need to recognize is that the Gospels are written to different groups of people, and different audiences require a little bit of differences in how they're written. An example of this is if we compare the Gospel of Mark with the Gospel of John when it comes to the Passion narrative, or when Jesus was crucified. The Gospel of Mark tells us that Jesus was crucified the 3rd hour. The Gospel of John says that his trial was ending at the 6th hour. Well, that seems like a very obvious contradiction. How could Jesus' trial have been ending the 6th hour if his crucifixion happened the 3rd hour? Because the 6th hour seems like that would be 3 hours later. It's easy to resolve when you recognize that Mark is using a way to keep time that matches the Jewish method. The Jews started their day at 6 o'clock p.m. and again in the morning, so the 3rd hour would be 9 o'clock in the morning. John is using the Roman time, and Roman time starts at midnight and at noon, so the 6 o'clock hour at that would be different and would follow after Mark's example. It's the same time being referenced, but it's just being spoken of in a different way. Kind of like today, we would use maybe a AM, PM, or other people would use military time or a 24-hour period of time. A second tool that we have when we're trying to understand why the Gospels read a little bit differently is to recognize that they're written by eyewitnesses. If you were to ask eyewitnesses from a car accident, and each of them stood on a different corner, they'd all have a little bit different perspective. Actually, this is one of the great evidences for the reliability of the Gospels. The fact is, if all of the Gospels read exactly the same, it's probable that they were concocted several centuries later. And the differences that you read in the Gospels, they're evidence of the eyewitness nature of them. And then a third tool that we have to understand why the Gospels have differences is to recognize that each of these Gospels adds a different layer of meaning. I like to say it like this: the different Gospels that we have are complementary, not contradictory. Like in Old Transparency, when you would lay one layer down and followed by another layer and followed by another layer, and yet they all bring together a cohesive picture. We really have one account of Jesus Christ. Some have called it a fourfold gospel. So the reason there are some differences in the different gospel narratives is because they are what they claim to be, a true account of actual historical events.